Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. But some days you just can't make sense of things, and today is one of them. We're going to talk about Florida's property insurance crisis. I'll have more in just a moment. So I saw an article come through today on one of my legal feeds, and it said Florida is going to try to eliminate one-way attorney's fees. I thought, what in the world is a one-way attorney's fee? That doesn't make any sense. So I started looking into it, and it relates to the property insurance crisis in Florida. For those of you who don't know, those of us who own property in Florida recently had our home insurance rates raised by at least 50%, supposedly because of some great crisis in the insurance industry. And of course, whenever insurance companies fail, they always point their finger at the attorneys that sue them. And the reason they do that is because apparently they do not have any mirrors in any of these insurance companies. And that prevents them from actually looking in the mirror and finding the person actually responsible for this insurance debacle. Now I'm going to talk about this, and I want you to know up front I'm biased because I have sued insurance companies and I know how they operate. And as a result of that, I am not going to give you a fair and balanced presentation on this. I'm just not. Somebody has to put the information out there for people who don't understand, I should say, what is actually going on. So, one of the reasons that insurance companies get sued is because they do really dumb things. And I'll talk about some of those here in a minute. But first, let's look at the article that the insurance companies put out. They went to the various media organizations and did sort of a PR approach. And one of the many things that they say is that on average, every day, more than 350 lawsuits are filed against insurance companies in the Sunshine State. And then they go on to talk about how that in 2021, there were 116,000 lawsuits filed in Florida. Notice it doesn't say 116,000 lawsuits filed against insurance companies. It just says 116,000 lawsuits. Now, maybe that's an error on the part of the scrivener here, but it also could be a very deft sleight of hand. California, which has almost twice as many residents, was in second place with 3,900. The 6 companies that failed this year that were declared insolvent, each one of those 6 had 5,000 or more lawsuits filed against them in the prior year. Well, let's take a look at some of the things that may not necessarily be apparent. So what happens? You get a bill in the mail and you have to pay your insurance company. And you send in your premiums diligently to the insurance company. Where do you suppose those premiums go? Now, a small portion of them, maybe 5%, go to pay the insurance agents and the clerical help and all of that kind of thing. But for the most part, the largest portion of your premiums is invested. And where do these insurance companies invest? Why, they invest in the United States stock market. Now, 2022, there were 6 of these insurance companies that were declared insolvent. I wonder what the S&P average looked like during 2022. It looked like this. And I wonder what the NASDAQ average looked like in 2022. Oh, it looked like this. So it seems to me that one of the things that is happening here is that these insurance companies are making bad investments, or they're getting hammered by the investments that they made in good faith. And rather than doing the rational thing and paying the customers what they are owed when they are owed it, essentially they deny a lot of claims that they should pay. Let me give you a little bit of the history, from at least from my perspective, with the Corey and Carey Rigsby case. Now, Corey and Carey sued one of the largest property insurers in the United States. And because I don't want to get slapped around by them, I'm not going to name them. But if you were to Google Corey and Carey Rigsby, you would probably find some articles that would lead you to that particular case. Now, early on in that case, we were working with a lawyer who wound up getting disbarred. And as a result of the conduct that got him disbarred, we wound up being disqualified, even though we had done nothing wrong. So, in spite of numerous attempts by the insurer to boot that case out of court, what the case was about was flood insurance. In the United States, certain companies are what they call write your own policy flood insurance companies. They use the National Flood Insurance Program, and they write the policies and they adjust those policies. They had sold all of these flood insurance policies along the Gulf Coast, and when Hurricane Katrina came in, even though a lot of the damage was due to wind and hail and other things, the insurance companies sort of pushed off all of those claims on the flood insurance program, and they did so in a manner that the Rigsby sisters alleged was fraudulent. And as a result, there was a 10-year, I guess probably 12-year battle over this particular issue. And it went on and on and on. There were multiple motions to dismiss. But at the end of that 12 years, Corey and Carey Rigsby were proved right. A jury vindicated them, and that particular insurer was forced to pay for what it had done. Now, what could have been a very inexpensive fix for this insurance company when they were caught would be to have made a clean breast of it, go to the federal government, and work out a deal where they would have paid a very little bit of money. As it is, they hired all of these huge high-priced law firms in Washington, D.C., in Mississippi, and other places to defend them in this lawsuit. And I am certain that they paid millions in legal fees. They probably paid more in legal fees than they did in actual damages, which is mind-boggling to me, but indeed that is what happened. And you can see sort of where this is going. At one point, we got served with a third-party subpoena. They wanted to look at our files. We had represented Corey and Carey Rigsby, so we had an attorney-client privilege, and they couldn't see our files, but they served these subpoenas anyway. And then what they did on the letter accompanying, they said, you have 15 days to either answer or object to these subpoenas. Well, that was pretty clever, because under the federal rules, you only have 14 days, and if you don't get your objection filed within the 14 days, you waive your objections. So fortunately, we weren't caught in that trap, but it is emblematic of the kinds of lawyers that we were dealing with on the other side, and of course, the Rigsby sisters were dealing with on the other side. It is unfortunate that many of these property insurance companies are more than happy to take your premium dollars, but they're not happy to fix your roof. They're more than happy to pay damages or pay an attorney's fee to get them out of paying damages, as opposed to paying damages and not paying an attorney's fee. So if you are a homeowner and your home has suffered nearly catastrophic damage from a hurricane, you have one option, and that is to go get your insurance money and get your house fixed. Well, if your insurance company doesn't play ball, you only have one other option, and that is to go to an attorney and ask them to sue and force the insurance company to make it right. Now, a lot of times it isn't necessarily the insured who is asking the insurance company to do the right thing. Several years ago, I represented a young man who was terribly injured in an explosion on a concrete truck. Now, you wouldn't think of concrete trucks as having explosive capability, but indeed they have air tanks that they use to power the hoses that they use to rinse off the little chambers that the concrete flows down. And the air chamber had rusted, there was a hole in it, and the manager who ran the company, who owned the company, went in there with a pair of Coke bottle glasses that he bought at the dollar store and just kind of did as best he could to weld that tank back into shape. Unfortunately, it didn't stick, and there was an explosive decompression. Our client was injured. Well, it took a while to get to the point where we got a verdict, but when there was a verdict, the insurance company refused to pay, and they cited the business pursuits exception. Now, the business pursuit at that time said that a business pursuit was the operation of a business and the use of the insured property in that business. Well, the accident occurred and the negligent conduct occurred away from the business premises, and it didn't say or, it said and. So we sued, and it wound up in front of the Missouri Supreme Court, and the Missouri Supreme Court said, nah, we kind of think and means and or means or, and if you wanted it to mean or, you should have written or. Again, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees to get to that point, and up to that point, not a dime for this very badly injured man. This is the kind of thing that happens in insurance litigation. I had another client, Mr. Cockerham, whose home was damaged by a contractor. He had the best policy that a particular insurer could give him, and they just flat refused to pay. And it took almost 6 years to get the insurance company to pay up, and that only happened after the insurance company paid lawyers, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars to contest the issue, when it would have been much easier, and they wouldn't have been hit with a vexatious delay penalty if they had just done what they were supposed to do at the very beginning. So let's think about these 6 insurers that failed in 2022. You have to ask yourself, is this a result? Are the lawsuits the result of a refusal to pay, a legitimate refusal to pay? Or are the lawsuits the result of a refusal to pay because they are already in financial trouble? And the only way these folks are going to get money is if they sue. Are they the result of the insurance company not reserving enough money? When a claim comes in, one of the first things an adjuster does is he says, well, the maximum amount we could be hurt on this claim is, pick a number, $50,000. And it inures to their benefit to pick a very low number, because then they can say in negotiations, well, that's all the money we reserved for this. What happens to the other money in the kitty that isn't reserved for that claim? Well, it goes into the insurance company's profits, so you can see where the incentives lie. And finally, again, looking at these 2 graphs, was the failure and refusal to pay related to an honest issue here? Or did the insurance companies fail because their investments did what everybody's 401k did in the last year? Those are all legitimate questions, but the insurance industry does not want anybody to focus on that. They want everybody to focus on the greedy trial attorneys. Well, let me tell you something. There is not going to be a greedy trial attorney involved if the insurance company does the right thing at the beginning. And that is the thing that can't be lost here. Now, if you buy insurance and you pay, we're paying close to $3,500 a year for property insurance. If I'm paying $3,500 a year for property insurance and they don't pay me, you can bet I'm going to go sue them if I have a covered loss. And why should I have to pay an attorney? if they are doing the wrong thing. If I prevail in court, I should get my attorney's fees. And no, I should not have to pay my attorney's fees if I wind up losing on a coverage issue, because most of the time, if there is a coverage issue, it is because the insurance company is interpreting its policy differently than 99% of the rest of the world would interpret it. The and versus or case sort of comes to mind there. So the solution to Florida's insurance crisis is not, repeat, not to mess with insurance fees or to mess with attorney's fees in insurance cases. It is to implement and enforce fair claims handling processes. It is to ensure that every insurance policy written in that state is written in such a way to give the benefit of the doubt in a close call to the homeowner. Insurance companies are very, very profitable. Don't let them kid you. They make money hand over fist as long as their investments make money hand over fist. And I'd also point out that if there really were 116,000 lawsuits filed in the state of Florida, think about where the state of Florida is and what goes through there 2 or 3 times every year in the late summer. Yeah, that's right, hurricanes. Hurricanes produce insurance claims, and insurance claims produce both payouts and lawsuits. So it is not surprising that in a state where insurance companies insure a lot of property against damage and storms come through that produce a lot of damage, that there would necessarily be a lot of lawsuits about that. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you found this interesting, useful, helpful. I always talk on here about being kind to other people. It's hard for me to think about being kind to an insurance company, but I do think that kindness has a great deal of value. And I would point out that when you're dealing with the insurance company and they say something that is just plainly crazy, that you don't get mad, you just get a lawyer. Thank you so much for watching, and have a terrific day. I will catch you on here next time. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.